Hello, everybody. This is Erin from Softree. Welcome to our webinar. We're going to be spending today previewing all of the exciting enhancements and features coming in version 11. So I'd like to introduce you, if you've probably seen them before, our two other resident webinar hosts. We've got Matthew Dickey as well as Diego Ortero. So he may not be familiar face to some of you if in this English webinar, but Diego actually is the host of all of our Spanish webinars. So welcome, Matt. Welcome, Diego. Okay, guys, shall we dig in? So we will kind of get started here. Our agenda for the next 45 minutes is really all about focusing on the different enhancements by modules. So we're going to start in terrain, move into location, and then head over and talk about optimal, which is now an add-on that's available both inside of terrain and the location modules. I just got to pause here and just let you know that these enhancements really do reflect our company's vision and purpose, which is to engineer an easier way. And I think what you're going to see here is a lot of these enhancements are all about driving efficiency and looking for new ways to do things that we do when it comes to locating, planning, designing roads, working with terrains. So really, really excited to share that with you. I just wanted to say two quick thanks as we start this presentation. The first are to our clients who have provided us feedback. We take all of your comments, suggestions, improvements, questions. We take all of that and it gets formulated, reviewed, and it really does help guide us in terms of how we do our development and what our strategies are. So thank you to our clients who've provided their feedback, and thank you to our development team. I know you're not the presenters today, but this is your baby, and we are so excited to be here to talk about it. Okay, that's my little spiel. The rest of the agenda, we're going to talk about some licensing changes too, some updates in terms of how you can get version 11, when it's coming, those specifics, and then lastly, yeah, Q&A. And with that, I'm going to turn my camera off. That way your screen can go fully big. But yeah, really excited to have you here with us, everybody. And let's get into it. So I'm going to kill my camera. Okay. So we're going to start in the terrain module. Three major categories, because the other one's other stuff. Three big areas of improvement inside the terrain module. The first is a brand new hydrology toolkit. Then we've got some huge improvements in terms of new panels and how panels function, some improvements from working with data, and some other stuff we did, which you'll see in each of the modules as we talk about it. Okay, hydrology tools. The hydrology toolkit, for those of you working in 10, may sound like it's not new. However, we actually decided to completely redo all of our hydrology tools. And this really has resulted in improved algorithms. They're faster, they're more accurate, and now there, as you're going to see in a couple minutes, way more functions. The first of which are watersheds. So our watersheds tool, it creates features for the different flow catchment areas in your TIN model. It is lightning fast in version 11. And it's really useful for knowing the location for drainage management, as well as as you look at your terrain to make sure you minimize the impact of your road design. So we've got watersheds. The next of the hydrology tools are streams and ponds. And I should say, this is just my preamble. We're actually going to go into a video and show you how they work here in a minute. So streams and ponds is the second one. Again, this was in 10. We threw it away and we redid it. More accurate, faster, really big improvements when it comes to working with streams and ponds. So this tool will basically analyze your terrain and give you the expected location of streams, as well as locations where water would potentially pool. And those get represented as ponds. So very useful hydrology tool, especially again in the context of our primary use case, which are designing roads. Okay, now function number 3. This is drainage to a point or feature, could be a feature as well. So what this does is it calculates the area that drains towards that selected point or feature. And within this, it also allows you to calculate the most hydraulically remote path, as well as the centroid. So some really, interesting functionality. We're going to go into an example in a couple minutes here and show you how this tool works. We've got flow paths. That's our fourth tool. And I've got 2 example slides here that just talk a little bit about flow paths. But given a point, this is going to calculate the flow paths from that point or feature. And here's what it looks like coming from a linear feature. And so this example, if you've got a road, bring it back into terrain, merge it, you can actually get the flow paths as being impacted by your road design. So a really interesting, use case uniting the road design from location, coming back and leveraging hydrology tools in terrain. The last one, and it's not in the hydrology toolkit menu. This is actually a new feature property, and it's called a hydro enforcement feature. And hydro enforcement features basically allow water or flow to travel through that feature rather than on the surface. And the best, most common example that we probably want to talk about for this would be something like a crossing, a culvert, pumping station where flow actually may be moved upslope before being discharged, for example. So anything that's kind of a vessel for transporting water, you can tag that as a hydro enforcement feature, and then you can leverage those tools that I just talked about in order to better understand how it's all working. So with that, I would love to pass it over now for a moment to Diego Otero, and he's going to talk a little bit about a few examples of using these hydrology tools.
Okay, thank you, Erin, for that introduction. First, we need a valid surface for running our hydrology tools. So the first thing we need to do is import our files, and then we need to model our surface. So we go to Terrain Modeling ribbon and click in Generate. We set our maximum set length, and we can turn on or turn off our contours. In this case, we will leave only the major ones and hit OK. We wait a couple seconds to generate our 3D view, and there we are. Now we use our hydrology tools drop-down list to create our watershed. So we set the cell size to 1, the depression field to 5 in this case, and the minimum watershed area to 2,500 square meters. And I press OK. And there we are. We can see how in 3D view we can visualize. So we apply drape plane image, and we press OK in the 3D options. And now we can see how our watersheds are in the 3D model. I will delete our contours just to visualize in a better way our watersheds. And if we rotate, we can easily identify our watersheds. Now we go again to 3D options, and I will apply a vertical exaggeration of 1.5 just to see clearly how our watershed is being applied into the topo, and it makes sense how is it behaving. And lastly, I will delete our watersheds with this new button that used to be only for deleting the terrain and the contours, but now we will be able to delete our hydrology tools as well. So yeah, our streams and ponds. Again, we go to terrain modeling and use our hydrology tools drop-down list to open the streams and ponds dialog. I will set the streams drainage area to 2,500, and we have this topo that makes sense with the streams we are generating, but I will select another 2 cases. We will set the stream drainage area to 500 just to create a project, for example, where we have a very important hydrology. And we can notice how we have all these streams and ponds features. And in the opposite case, we have a very huge stream drainage area, for example, 50,000 square meters. And we can see how it could create, for example, a scenario where it's a desert or a non-important hydrology project. If we return to our basic settings of 2500, we have these streams, and I will again delete it easily with our streams and ponds delete button, and just like that. Drainage calculations. We have different ways to set our drainage calculations. In this very first example, we will select the only one point, and we will go to the hydrology tools drop-down list to set the drainage dialog and drain only to current point. And there we are. We have this catchment area. If we zoom in, we can notice that a new feature has been created. This one is the most hydraulically flow path. And I will change the type of the line, the color, and I will hit apply to visualize in a better way our length. If we come back to our full view, we can notice the length of the flow path. Here I am zooming in again to see this streamline, and we can delete again these features with our delete button. We can see that also we had a drainage area centroid that was created as well. Flow paths. Flow paths are very interesting because this is a very new tool we have implemented. We can notice how it's behaving the water in this case. So we select only a current point. In this case, we will flow only to current point and drain radius set to 0 meters and press OK. And we see this interesting behavior of the flow that it's not as expected because we have culverts over there. So we can't hydroforce these flow paths with the new tool we have. So we select all the features we have with the name enforcement. That will be the zones where we have existing culverts. And in the properties panel, we select the hydro enforcement and hit apply. And then if we rerun our flow paths again, we select one of our enforcement features, points, sorry, and we run again our flow paths. Perfect. We witness how the flow now consistently follows its intended route. Of course, this tool is being intended to be used and compatible with the other hydrology tools. So if we run again our streams and ponds tool once more, we observe the desired flow trajectory through the designated areas where we apply these culverts with the hydro enforcement features. And there we are. Now it makes sense how our streams are behaving going through our culverts. Again, if I select an inlet, in this case, this inlet 6, and we run the drainage area, it will match again the hydro enforcement feature. And now we have this catchment area that is flowing from this inlet. We select this catchment area and we can, of course, have the properties as the area and etc. Drainage area to several features. We can, instead of calculating the drainage area for just one individual point, we can select all the inlets we need to calculate at the same time. And simultaneously, we can get all these drainage area features. This enables us to assess all those drainage areas in one go. So for example, we have the flexibility to select these features individually, allowing us to work on them, understand their properties, for example, their elevation, their area, etc. And they will overlap where necessary and remain separately where they don't need to be overlapped.
Cool.
Awesome.
I'll chime in too as a user. Super useful functionality, and then as a Softree person, it's also the whole hydrology basket of tools is really a solid foundation that we can keep expanding on for lots of additional function in future versions. So really useful as it stands, but super important to us moving forward with the key functions.
Awesome. Thank you, Diego, for talking us through all those functions. And I just want to let you know, although those looked crazy fast and we're showing videos today, nothing in those videos was actually sped up. That was real time. That is how ridiculously fast our hydrology tools work. So yeah, hydrology. Okay, let's keep it going. The next new feature in terrain are panels. Now, this one is obviously a little bit less sexy than the last one. It's panels, but it's all about making your life easier. So inside of terrain, we've got a brand new background terrain panel, and this really makes it easier to handle external terrain files. So let's take a quick look at the new background terrain panel. So on the side, you've got the new terrains panel, and in it is a list of all the background terrains that are contained within your project. So if you're doing a grading project, you're going to have your topo surface in the background with your, say, graded pad on the top. You might also have an ortho image. So here we can control their different display order of the background terrains. We can control their washout, and we can also really quickly and easily click them, open them, delete them. A lot of just at your fingertips controls, making it a little bit clearer in terms of what's in your terrain. And then in terms of just the overall panel behavior. So again, trying to make it easier, all the panels in both location and terrain are now available permanently on the side as tabs. You can obviously expand them and pin them, but we've taken away a whole bunch of that sort of more complicated behavior, made it nice, clear, and simple. Yeah. And that's the panel behavior improvements. So having them permanently available on the side. Okay. Let's keep going. In terms of working with data, we have obviously seen, and I'm sure you guys have all seen it too, a huge proliferation in the density and availability of high resolution data. And one of our improvements in 11 is just helping you to work with it a little bit better. So we've introduced a new thinning method. This is the closest point removal in 3 dimensions. And this thinning method will take points that are close to other points, both horizontally and vertically, and we'll discard those from the project, from your surface, I should say. Let's take a look at that. So in this quick example, we've got about 8.5 million modeled points. Obviously it's within our tolerance with RoadEng to deal with. However, the less points, the faster your model is going to work. So here we've gone up to our terrain modeling tab, gone to the simplify button, and here we can select closest point removal, set our minimum distances, both horizontally and vertically, that are our tolerances. And then we're able to run this operation. This one did take 15 seconds. We're being honest, we did speed it up just to save us the time. But we were able to remove half of our points. So we've gone from 8.5 million down to 4.5 million points in the model, while keeping all of our surface data. And really the biggest benefit to this in steeper slopes, because of the vertical change, you're going to keep your data in full resolution, and in flatter terrains where you may not need quite as much resolution, it's going to reduce it for you. So high resolution steeper slopes, low resolution in flatter terrain, and it's a really useful method for selectively thinning your data. And of course, the option existed there within that simplified dialog to set a corridor where you want to keep, or a polygon feature where you want to keep it at full resolution as well. Okay, so that's working with data, new thinning method. We've also got a couple other functions and features for working with data, including a rasterize function, so you can access this through your terrain modeling. Feature tools within terrain. It takes polygons or polylines and it's able to rasterize them. And then lastly, to round out the terrain module, new 3D symbols. So we've got 6 new symbols available for 3D use: stop sign, yield sign, an awesome transmission tower, maple tree, solar panel, as well as a fence. And if you ever have a symbol that you're like, I really wish that was in the software, just ask for it. These are all things that people asked for. So you ask, we typically look to put it in, and those are our new 3D symbols. Okay, that was kind of a summary of what we put in the terrain module. We're going to move over now to location. So location has a few big new feature changes, the first of which 3D window defaults. We've got polyline to alignment, multiple alignment handling, so there's a kind of a group of improvements in that space, and then some other stuff. So we're going to take a look at each of these now. So the 3D window defaults, basically it's for 3D corridor services. New projects can get these settings by default, and then you can also modify the settings and use them for yourself in the future. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Matt. He's going to chat us through 3D window defaults.
All right, cool. Yeah, so in version 11, we've added the ability to, save our preferences for how our 3D views are set up. So when we start new location files, as I'm doing here in the video, we don't have to mess around in order to see things in the 3D. So I can see my topo surface is showing as a surface, and as I click in and design that road, we can see the roadway as well. So no need to set things up and mess around with that. Just for a recap of what that looks like in version 10. If we were to do the same thing in version 10 and want to see similar 3D view, we'd have to go into our 3D options. We'd have to tell it, well, we want our topo to be white and have the triangles shaded. And then we'd have to say, well, we want the subgrade to be, I think I go with cyan in this case. And then we'll have to add in the other surfaces that we'd like to include as well. And so we do that. And then of course, as you're setting things up and doing the same thing over and over again, there's always that chance for not doing or not catching something you'd like the first time. So, oh, I missed changing my alpha channel so I could see through that topo surface here. So really here, we didn't change the functionality of the feature. We still get to visualize what we'd like. It's just, again, we don't have to mess around setting things up. So you can see there what was I wouldn't go as far as saying arduous task, but something that could have been a lot easier. We've leaned into the making it easier aspect of it.
I'm going to say arduous. For us non-RoadEng wizards like yourself, Matt, that was 22 clicks in version 10. 0 extra clicks in version 11, so I think that's a win. So corridor surface defaults, an exciting new click saving feature in 11, and now bringing us to I'm going to say probably one of my favorite enhancements coming inside of the location module. And yes, to that person who just gave us a comment, they agreed with me. It's a win, less clicks. So polyline to alignment. This is a new feature in location, and it kind of spans a whole bunch of different use cases, which we're going to step through in a minute, but it's able to generate an alignment with curves based on an input polyline, and it tries to minimize the number of IP points while adhering to, say, a minimum radius and your maximum offset constraints. And for that, we're going to go back into a video. Matt.
Cool. So another one that I guess we're trying to take out the monotony of things. So polyline to alignment. Oftentimes there'll be a polyline that we want to use for our alignment. So common example would be a total station survey where we have a surveyed center line. So each surveyed point goes into that polyline, and it is very much a polyline. So previously, the thing you'd do would be to either trace it or bring it in as a polyline and delete a bunch of points and manipulate it to get what you'd like. Now we can just reference that terrain feature when we create our alignment, and we can go up to our polyline to alignment with curves. So here we can say, well, I want my minimum radius for this road to be, well, 200 feet in this case, and we want to simplify it a bit, so we're going to give it a maximum offset distance, so up to 3 feet away from the original center line, and we'll let the software figure out for, well, how few of IPs can we get and still maintain that maximum offset. So we're down to 3 in a matter of seconds. Again, eliminating something that's, well, somewhat arduous, and at least if it's not arduous, it certainly is boring, tracing that stuff in. So meant to be a time saver. You can still move those around, put them wherever you'd like, but yeah, not nearly as labor intensive. It doesn't just work with total station data. So for those of you on the other end of the spectrum with traverse files, so hand traverse data, when you start a location file based off of a P line, well, it comes in as a polyline. So we can use that functionality on this as well. So again, minimum radius, set our max offset, let it think, and we'll see we get a series of curves and tangents out of this thing. And we can see the lapse time being tracked there too. So yeah, works pretty quickly. And then another common case, and just to really reemphasize that it's not just linked to a single format. If we had a design that was based off a LiDAR surface, didn't have a surveyed center line, but maybe we have a polyline in some other digital format, so a common one being a shapefile. Well, we could use the same workflow for that, only we need to first add that shapefile into terrain. So we've going to switch into terrain. We're going to insert our terrain file. And as I do this in the video here, I will note that you don't have to go into location first. You can do this all seamlessly in a linear workflow rather than adding it in after the fact. But yeah, we'll add that in, we'll hit save. And then once we have that shapefile, which is now a terrain feature in location, we can, well, we'll update, we'll go over, we will add in our alignment based off of that feature. And we'll run that tool once again. And this one, we're going to leave it fairly, well, a fairly small radius. It's a twisty, turny road. We'll hit OK. And this one's a bigger, more complicated alignment. It takes a little bit longer to get there. But we can watch as that number of IPs reduces. We can see the maximum offset. That's the best solution that it's found so far. So if we had to hit cancel anywhere along the way, we'd be left with the best solution that it had found so far. We'll hit OK. And if we just glance at what we were dealing with there, it's a pretty good representation of what we started with. It's just, again, removing some clicks from the process and making it easier to start doing the more enjoyable stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. And I'm just going to tackle one question that's kind of come in as we were talking through polyline to alignment, which is, does this work in the vertical plane as well, or is it just horizontal? So we are going to address this in a little bit more detail once we get into the optimization portion of the presentation. So polyline to alignment is just a vertical tool, but we do have something that works. I mean, sorry, just a horizontal tool, but we have something that works for the vertical as well, tied in with Softree Optimal. So we will get to that one. Okay, let's keep going forward. Multi-alignment handling. So I'm sure if you've been a long-time customer of ours, you've been joining us on our multi-alignment functionality journey, and this is, you know, each version we continually look to and add and improve to it. So in 11, we've got sort of 2-3 big new features here in the multi-alignment handling space. The first of which is when you start a new location file, you are able to create new alignments from multiple features simultaneously. So if you're, starting your initial alignment, you can select a whole bunch of things and create, say, 3, 5, however many alignments right from the get-go. So yeah, the user's no longer required to create alignments one at a time. You can kind of batch process that at the start. So that's part one. Part two, multi-plot, multiple alignments in a book. This is the most requested feature from users that we have in today's presentation and in version 11. We've got multiple alignments being able to be in a multi-plot book. Each chapter can be assigned to a different alignment. And then you can see the cute little pink icons that denotes that it is the current alignment that chapter is set to. And we're going to take a look at this in a video here in a moment. And then the third other big element in our multi-alignment handling is the breaking and snapping of alignments. So you can break an alignment into 2 alignments, and then you can also snap alignments from one alignment to the other. So these functions are available through the options button for the snapping and through the corridor operations button for breaking. And with that, back to Mr. Matt. Want to chat us through the multiple alignment handling?
Sure. So it really does complement that polyline to alignment functionality. We can click set up to our new location file, reference the topo file we'd like, and then instead of being stuck just adding one alignment at a time, we can add in several. So another kind of source for our polyline data, we'll be using a series of XPath features here, which we will get to a little later on. But we can bring those all in at once, and well, we can apply our polyline to alignment functionality on there too, if we'd like. Yeah, so another nice thing about this feature is when we bring in lots of different alignments, instead of just having a generic name like H alignment 1, H alignment 2, we're preserving the name of those features. So we'll let the polyline to alignment think here and wrap up. But when we zoom back out the Project Explorer panel, we can see the names of those three alignments. So off to the right there, we can see the names of those 3 alignments are preserved based off the train feature name. All right, and now we've got the multi-plot aspect of things. So this design, we've got 2 different alignments in there. So we can see we've got one road coming up the hill and then one jumping off from it. We're going to click our multi-plot icon down at the bottom to activate the multi-plot window. And I'm going to start out here by just adding in a few chapters. So I'm going to add in a plan over profile. I'm going to add in I'm going to duplicate those. So I've got 2 alignments. I ultimately want them to have the same chapters just for different roads. So we've got those duplicated. And now to set which alignment goes with which, we go into our pagination chapter options and we're going to select other. And well, the first set I want to be my access road. And then we'll do the same for our sections. And there we are. Now the other two, if we just left those as auto, they're going to switch back and forth depending on what your current alignment is. So in this case, I don't want to accidentally switch around and confuse myself later. So I'm going to just fix those to be associated with my camp road alignment. So yeah, it's super requested as a user. I'm super excited about this one. It just makes it easier to keep things organized. Yeah, you don't have to worry about different multi-plot books for different alignments. It's just all in one. With that, I'll hand it back to Erin.
Awesome. Okay, we are, as I expected, going over time. So let's just quickly go through the last few. I know our last big video that we're going to show you is about 10 minutes. So in our other category, and this is one that our support team is going to love, which is save as a zipped RoadEng project. So if we ever ask you, you're asking for support and we're like, send us your files, you can now go up and press a button, save as zipped RoadEng project. It groups every file together. And anyway, let me get a video playing and I can talk about it as we show it. So you've got a RoadEng project. It's got some background terrain files. It may have a logo in your multiplot. You can go up to the Save As button. Here you can select from the drop-down zipped RoadEng project. And this will now save every file associated with that location file in one cute little zipped package, making it really, really, really easy to share your files, to archive your files. Everything is, packaged up neatly together. So zipped RoadEng project, it's in the other category. I think it's particularly awesome. Also in the other category are some improvements to multiplot. We've got a new rich text format rectangle to allow you to have better formatting control. So here you can copy and paste any type of rich text you would like into the box. You can have bullets, bold text, underlining, highlighting, mixed fonts, tables, you name it. It's a copy paste, but really a highly functional rectangle. We've also got here in the second picture, I don't know if you can see my mouse wiggling, we've got a new scroll icon. So this scroll icon appears in views when you have manually scrolled that view outside of the default sort of settings to let you know that it's been manually scrolled. So if you were to save your book layout, apply it to another one, it will tell you if you've got something that's manually scrolled. So really useful. There's also been some units improvements in terms of how we display things, as well as the inclusion of Unicode characters for our regular rectangle. So that's inside of multiplot. Okay. Last, I think it's last, at least in our location, we've got an ability now to merge background terrain surfaces into your location topo. And what this really means is we are able to take something like a pad in terrain and merge that into the surface. Previously, if you had a pad and a topo surface, you're going to go back and create a merged surface in terrain. Well, we're really looking at driving some efficiency, removing that aspect of the process. So here you can just set that terrain pad or that terrain surface to merge into the topo, and we're skipping the creation of an entire extra file and making it a lot easier to work with multi-surface examples, like this applies heavily to, say, wind farms, for example. Matt, did I miss anything important on that one?
That's a quick on the gun for unmuting myself. No, I think you got it. It's just a useful feature to, if you've designed a pad and you have your topo surface, rather than having to stitch the two together and save out another file. We can save some clicks. We can save having to keep one more file organized in your project folders. And then the other nice thing about that is, as you're changing things, if the pad changes, you only have to change one file. So behaves very similar to a corridor surface in merging a corridor surface in locations, just doing it with a terrain surface.
Can you guys tell the slide that was added this morning? Okay, last piece, and this one unfortunately we don't have a pretty picture or a video. You're just going to have to take our word for it. But we added parallelization of the cross-section calculation, and what this really means is massive speed improvements when your alignments are recalculating. In my computer, we're looking at 2 times faster. If you've got way more cores, it's even faster than that. So we love speed, we love efficiency, so that's a great one that kind of checks both those boxes. Okay, never mind. There's one more. Template e-library improvements. We've got a whole bunch of new templates that got added to the e-library. A railway template, GRS MSE wall template, a shoulder inclusion and resource 1 template, and not shown on the screen, we've got a buttress cut slope template that was added, and some improvements to some other ones. So V11 e-library, new stuff added. Yeah, okay. Now, optimal, our last of the modules. So 2 major functional changes inside of optimal. We've got smart curves, and we had that question earlier about taking polyline to alignment and if it works in vertical. So smart curves is sort of the vertical equivalent in quotes of polyline to alignments. This is where we're going to generate curves in a really smart way. A very exciting feature add. And then we've got Path Explorer. We've toyed with the idea of changing the name, but people seem to know it now because we've talked about it a little bit. And this is our new tool for helping you with find and locate roads better. So let's start with Smart Curves. So it's a vertical curve simplification tool. It simplifies your vertical alignment through either merging curves or through vertical IP reduction. It's really smart, and it makes a road significantly more constructible, especially when you run it through optimal. So let's take a look at the video.
All right, so we're gonna start out again, kind of using version 10 as a frame of reference. So this feature is primarily useful for those doing vertical optimizations. And previously, if we ran fast curves on something like this, it would give us the cheapest possible solution to build that road based off our earthworks costs, but it's a pretty busy solution. So instead, we're gonna adjust our smart curve settings here. So we're basically using these settings to remove curves and combine curves that are largely insignificant. Now, that is at the cost of a little bit of dirt getting moved, but it's usually at a minimal cost. So we've added on about $1,000 based off our earthwork costs, and you can look pretty quickly at what those 2 alignments look like for the difference. So we've gone from having 72 curves down to 14. So just all around a much more pleasant solution to look at. If you're the surveyor having to stake out that stuff, it's a lot nicer to have fewer curves to deal with, and just, yeah, looks a lot nicer.
Awesome. And it's worth full disclosure, guys, we did speed up that video if you couldn't tell. That one had about a 5 times speed up in the solve time on the vertical optimization. Okay, speeding right along. So smart curves, really useful tool. You can apply it at the end of optimization, or you can actually access it separately through that corridor operations menu. And last but not least, functional improvements. Path Explorer. So what is Path Explorer? Path Explorer is our first optimization feature that is inside of the terrain module. And it's really used at more of sort of a landscape level for figuring out optimized routes between 2 points. So for right now, we're just going to call those points A and B. The tool looks to minimize your earthwork and your surfacing costs, and to meet some of your constraints. So we've got, say max grade, your side slopes, minimum cut, max fill. If you've got no-go zones or streams that you cross, you want to have costs associated with those, you can add in constraints like that. And what Path Explorer will do is it will generate optimized alignment options in minutes. Now, I'll have to say the solve time does vary. If you are solving a 50 kilometer road across a massive terrain that's extremely complicated, it can take an hour or two. But for most sort of typical projects that we've seen our clients working with, optimized alignment options in minutes. And this is one that my picture and words do it absolutely no justice. So I'm going to pass it again over to Matt. Let's take a look at Path Explorer.
Cool. All right, so this is obviously a tool we're pretty excited about, but it really is a tool that can change the way folks approach their projects quite a bit, save a ton of time. So it's getting into the generative space where we choose a start point, we choose an end point, we go over to our Path Explorer button, and we put in a few parameters. So we'll change things like, well, we want a maximum grade of 18%. We'll leave our minimum curve radius, in this case, at 20 meters. We'll run it, and this stuff does get sped up. No one wants to watch the screen for a minute or so, but we can look at the elapsed time there. And what it does is it's going to give us, we told it to give us 5 different options. It'll find us 5 different ways to get from point A to point B, adhering to our constraints and considering how much dirt we're going to move. So it tells us it's unlikely to improve. We hit cancel. We let this thing post-process. And there we are. We can see the different solutions. And some of those are pretty close to each other and didn't choose anything way off to the side. And that's because once we get much further than that, it's going to be outside of that 10% optimal. So all 5 of those will be within 10% of their estimated cost. So we're going to look at a more complicated example here. So longer road, gnarlier terrain. We're going to just run it as we did last time. So we're say go from here to there. But this one, we're going to bump into a case where we're going to want to consider more than just how much dirt we're going to move to build it. So when we run this solution, we'll see the results here in a moment. And at a glance, it looks pretty good. I mean, it makes sense. You go up onto that bridge, get turned around in the direction you'd like, and contour around to get to where we want to go. But when we take a closer look at things, well, there's more than just we want to minimize how much dirt we're moving. There's a bunch of terrain issues with this, old slide tracks, scars, and whatnot. So we can account for what we call construction zones. I'm going to just dump in a shapefile here with a bunch of polygons that outline areas where I expect there's going to be terrain instability issues. Now, aside from just where we expect there to be terrain issues, we probably want to also account for streams. Of course, crossing streams usually costs more. And we're going to add those into our construction zones. So if we wanted to say absolutely don't go into those polygons, we could call them a no-go polygon. Instead, I'm not sure if I can actually get up there and avoid all those. So we're going to add those unstable zones in as just a polygon, but we're going to increase the unit cost associated with them. So your costs can be a real cost. So if you were going through something with like shallow bedrock, you base your unit cost based off your excavated rock costs. In this case, I'm using it more as a penalty. So just to discourage it from going through those gnarly spots. I'll add in my streams. So my streams are getting added in as a crossing cost. So just to cross those features, it costs whatever amount of money I tell it to. We could split that up with different costs for different streams if we'd like, but keeping it simple here. Now, when we rerun this, once again, doesn't happen instantaneously, but we can see the amount of time that it takes. So it's found 5 paths, and then it tells us unlikely to improve. So we hit cancel. And we let this thing post-process, and we'll see our solution changes. And it changes quite a bit. Now we're snaking around. We're just on the edge of some of those features because we couldn't completely avoid them. That being the outcome of using it as a soft constraint with a penalty rather than a hard no-go. But we can see we're not going out to that other ridge. In order to kind of thread the needle up the hill, we're switching on a different ridge and really trying to get around that as best we can. So yeah, super powerful tool. All the feedback that we've had, it's been positive, and it does feed right into some of those other tools that we've already introduced. So this is a preliminary tool. We don't have a detailed cross-section. We've got an approximated cross-section in the calculations that it's using. But we can take that over into location, and we can feed it into location for a much more thorough analysis and actual design. So using that, I could have brought in multiple, but I'm just bringing in one here for this. So we're bringing in our XPath feature. And we'll run our Polyline to alignment tool. So we're going to take that polyline and we're going to reduce it down to curves and tangents. So go with 20 and 5. And it's a steep, gnarly road. That 20 is allow for our switchbacks. And there we are. So we've let this thing go. And we can see our solution. So this gets us to a decent starting point, but now we want to actually consider our vertical. We want to consider our vertical curves. We want to consider material movements rather than just the actual excavation and handling costs. We're going to go into our vertical optimizer. We're going to set our control points. So much of this behaves the same as optimal in previous versions. The big difference here is when we hit process, we're going to use that smart curves feature. And that's just, we're going to use it to avoid having a bunch of insignificant or redundant curves. So we'll let this thing run and arrows in on the best solution. Hit OK, let the alignments calculate and cross sections calculate, and we can see what we're dealing with. So pretty rock solid mass haul, steep, gnarly terrain, and yeah, very, it was easy. And it's one of those things too, if you had have realized, oh, I didn't account for this, you could update your parameters in the optimization, or you're not fixed with it. You can still switch back and forth between a conventional design and an optimal design. So with that, I'll hand it back to Erin.
Perfect. And I just want to say, so we did have some speed ups in that video. I think it was reasonably obvious, but front to back, the unedited version of that workflow was about low 20 minutes. So huge efficiency gains between Path Explorer, Polyline to alignment, smart curve kind of combo lumped in together. So really, really exciting. So those were optimal features. And those 3 features that I just mentioned kind of, are a great way to introduce our licensing changes. So smart curves, Polyline to alignment, and Path Explorer are now what we are calling at Softree exclusive support subscriber features. So if you are on support, these are part of your, and you have optimal, I should say, for 2 of those. You get these. They are available. If you have no support, these features are not available. And one of the biggest reasons for that is we really want to be able to support our clients as they're using these tools. So if you're running a Path Explorer and I've got a huge project and I don't know how to handle it, we're able to help, get involved from a support ticket standpoint and help you if you need it. So starting in V11, we've got these 3 features. These are support subscriber features only. You're going to be able to tell your support period. For those of you working with a cloud license, it'll be included in your license activation summary. And then from the network side, this date is in there as well in a similar screen. So very, subtle but important change that allows us to help our clients in their projects as they work through these exciting new tools. Okay, so how do you get version 11? I don't know, probably the most important slide of the presentation. So today is our feature preview webinar. sometime probably in the next 2 weeks, you're going to see some official communications from our company that if 11 is officially released, there's a website, there's a training document, there'll be some really cute LinkedIn posts, probably a lovely little e-blast. Yeah, our marketing manager is giving some cool hands up right now. I love it. So that's coming mid-March, mid to end of March, depending on where you fall alphabetically. Probably clients on support are going to get some custom communications, get you some update instructions on what that process looks like. And then mid to end of April, we're going to be releasing 11 into trial format. And of course, trials are not part of our support program, so you will see those 3 functions that we just talked about are actually not going to be included in trials. So Path Explorer, Smart Curves, and Polyline to alignment. If you're interested in learning more about them or seeing how they apply to your projects, yeah, have a chat with us. We're happy to load it up quickly and do a little screen share. Okay, guys, with that, I'm going to turn my camera on. Thank you for being here as we rolled out and talked about all these exciting enhancements in version 11. Our team is, oh good, they're all joining us, super pumped about it. And we hope you are too. More communications and information coming out in the next couple weeks. Thanks for being here. We've got Spanish version for the 11 preview coming up next week. And in a couple weeks from now, we're actually going to do a really deep dive on all those hydrology tools. Tons of questions that are still remaining in our chat here on them. So we're going to go really deep on hydrology in a couple weeks. You can join us for that webinar, softree.com/webinars. And thank you. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.